Hello and welcome to this video where we will go through the scales of MPA. MPA is an ipsative personality test. The term ipsative refers to how the statements are presented in our questionnaire. They are shown 4 at a time, and the test taker must choose the one that suits the best and one that suits the least, while 2 statements receive no value on each screen. This can be good to clarify for the test takers, as they don't always read the instructions before the test. We measure 8 traits, but obtain 9 results, which are categorized into 3 groups. The candidate has responded to a maximum of 20 statements per trait, resulting in a total of 80 clicks made, with an equal number of statements not receiving a click. This means each trait can have a maximum of 20 clicks. Then we have achievement orientation, which is a trait we don't explicitly measure in the test itself. Instead, 4 other traits measure it for us. Here are our traits, which are divided into 3 groups: ego drive or me behaviors, social factors or we behaviors, and finally, work style or job behaviors. Let's go through each scale in more detail. Achievement orientation is the first of our ego drive behaviors, or me behaviors. It describes how goals are primarily defined and achieved. If a person exhibits behavior on the left-hand side, they thrive with long time horizons. They define objectives and results qualitatively and considers priorities thoroughly. We also say that they are process-oriented, meaning that the order in which tasks are performed is more important than when they are actually completed. On the opposite side of the scale, we have the opposite behavior, and that's how it is with our ipsative tests. We measure the entire scale. So on the right-hand side, we have a person who thrives with short time horizons. They define objectives and results quantitatively with many short-term goals. We could describe them as avid competitors and goal-oriented. The next trait is self-assertion, which describes how influence is sought. A person on the left-hand side seldom expresses their own opinions and tends to hand over control. They are reticent, meaning quiet and withdrawn. They can participate in meetings but prefer not to be the focus. They adapt to the group and are good listeners. On the other side, we have the opposite behavior, where the person pushes through own opinions, takes control, can be dominant, seeks influence, and has great impact. The last trait in this group is use of energy, which describes how energy is typically used. A person on the left-hand side is persevering, prefers a calm working environment, focuses on the tasks at hand, prioritizes their energy, and prefers to have only a few tasks at a time. We call them finishers. They don't feel truly done until everything is completed thoroughly. On the right-hand side, we have the opposite behavior. Here we find a person who is forced and impatient, thrives in a hectic work environment, and is enterprising and dynamic. By this, we mean they create, generate, and push things forward. They enjoy juggling many tasks simultaneously, and we refer to them as starters. So if we have a project, it's good to have a person of each type. Someone who can start things off and toss 10 balls up in the air, and then someone who can catch them and make sure everything is wrapped up in the end. Those were our first 3 traits. Now we've reached the social factors, or the we behaviors. First we have emotional control. It describes how people show and use their feelings. We do not measure how much emotion someone has, but rather how much is expressed outwardly. On the left-hand side, we have a person who expresses their emotions freely, becomes emotionally involved, and is affected by ambience and situations. They often worry and are temperamental, experiencing a wide range of emotions. There can be big laughter, intense sadness, strong anger, and so on. On the opposite side, we have a person who seldom exhibits their own feelings, but instead focuses on the business. They are rational, nonchalant, and emotionally controlled, with more emphasis on tasks. The next trait is called social contact, which we refer to as the introvert-extrovert scale. It describes how much contact a person wants with others. We are not measuring social competence, which is a skill. You can learn to behave more socially appropriately or acceptably. Instead, here we measure where a person draws their energy from. On the left-hand side, we have an introverted person, someone who prefers to work independently, is socially hesitant and withdrawn. They would prefer to work alone or in small groups, focusing on existing relationships. And on the right side, we have the extrovert. This person prefers to work with others and is actively making new contacts. If they find themselves in an office and they feel a bit lonely, they'll head to the coffee machine to recharge with some social interaction. They talk to everyone, are extremely sociable, and create many new contacts. Moving on to trust. It describes how people typically show confidence and trust in others. It also gives an indication of how they handle conflicts. A person on the left-hand side is reserved and skeptical towards others. They do not shy away from conflicts, they speak directly and bluntly, and tend to be quite critical. They don't sugarcoat things, but rather say what they think in a direct manner. In the opposite side, we have a person who is accommodating and trusting. They have difficulty in speaking out, shies away from conflicts, and are considerate and tolerant towards others. In this case, they might soften their words, making it a bit unclear what they want to convey instead. They may also try to avoid conflicts. Now we move on to the last group, called work style or job behaviors, starting with attention to detail. This describes how people prefer to approach work duties. As usual, we start with the left-hand side. Here we have a person who prefers the holistic approach, wants an overview, and delegates routine tasks. They enjoy variety. On the right-hand side, we have the opposite behavior. Here, the person is attentive to details and thorough. They take on routine tasks and immerse themselves into tasks, focusing on things like decimals, millimeters, precision, and perfection. Next is security, which describes how people prefer to make decisions. A person on the left-hand side doesn't necessarily need to feel very secure. They have a short decision-making process, take chances, and are spontaneous. They make numerous and quick decisions and move to action promptly. The idea is, I make a decision now, and if it's wrong, I'll make another decision. You could say they shoot from the hip, and the quality of that decision is uncertain. To assess how good the decision-making process is, we need to measure the person's logical ability. Security in MPA only shows the preference for how quickly they make decisions, not how well they pan out. On the other side, we have a person with a long decision-making process. They fail-safe their decisions by double-checking and triple-checking. They thoroughly consider all options. They take their time to find the right decision and are reluctant to act quickly. The same principle applies here. Just because someone double-checks does not necessarily mean they will be more accurate. They may need to double-check because they have a lower logical ability. So we measure behaviors here, while abilities are measured in our logical tests. Next, we move to abstract orientation, which is our final behavior. It describes a person's interest in development and new ideas. On the left-hand side, we have a person who is practical and concrete. They are focused on getting things done. They thrive when job guidelines are in place. They ask for the guidelines and then they stay within those boundaries. They thrive with traditional methods and standard practices. On the opposite side, we find the opposite behavior. Here we have a person who likes the abstract and theoretical, who is contriving and who challenges guidelines. They ask about the rules and then challenges them or go beyond them. They thrive with unconventional methods and focuses on alternatives and new ideas. And the same goes for abstract orientation as for security. We don't know how good a person is at thinking outside of the box, only that they enjoy it. To assess this, we would need to use ACE or CORE. That concludes the MPA. If you need support, you can find it via the link on the right. You can also visit master.se and navigate from there. If you want to get in touch with us, you can reach us by phone at +46 8 32 42 42 or by email at support@master.se. Thank you for watching.